it's Lipany, it's my favourite map, and I have an extra special casted game for you today. On the south side in the purple, we have Bulugudu as the Byzantines, and on the north side in the yellow, we have me as the Abbasid Dynasty. So this is a game I played the other day and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it, but the audio didn't save while I was speaking, and I thought rather than you watching me in silence from my perspective just hammering away at my keyboard and trying my best to survive against the Byzantines, I thought I'd cast this back and then I could give you a bit of an idea of my choices, what I was doing, because I think there were quite a few things that I did pretty well, some things I definitely could have improved, and you know, I thought it'd be interesting to review the game as well. So I've also decided to do the split screen scouting, and I guess a little behind the scenes. I actually record that before I do this bit where I'm speaking, so I do that first and then I talk. So I've actually seen the scouting path for both of us, and I think it's quite interesting that actually the initial scouting path of Bulugudu is a little bit weird, going off to the side and round, I think, especially on Lipany, because you have no idea where the cliffs are going to spawn. You really want to go to the centre and then try and get half of the map. Obviously, where he's going at the moment, and he actually manages to cut in front of my scout, actually that works really well for him and he manages to get quite a lot extra. But I'm already doing pretty well for sheep as it is, so I'm not exactly starving for some of that lamb that we need to get our age up. Now, I think in this case, the reason I love Lipany, you'll have heard me talk about it loads before, but this map is kind of random. There can be cliffs all over the map, there can be no cliffs, so you've really got to scout. And I think in this particular game, scouting was something definitely I needed to do a little bit better. So at the beginning, I think I scouted generally around relatively well, but I don't think I scouted my base or around my base particularly well, and it really did highlight to me that when I'm going for a 2TC build, which as the Abbasid I generally do, I do need to have a bit more information of all of the resources in the, let's say, the secondary ring around my TC. So if you think about your TC, you've got all of your primary resources. So you've got my berries at the front, I've got gold at the back, and then I've got stone in the back on the other side. So that would be my primary ring, and then obviously the two safe wood lines. So on Lipany, you always have two wood lines, and then you have those resources scattered around somewhere in a circle. And then outside of that, most of the other resources tend to spawn kind of in a ring almost. So around my base, there should be a secondary gold somewhere. There should be a secondary berries. Obviously on Lipany, there are more berries than usual, so that's something to kind of be aware of. But because I didn't have a lot of information, so you'll see my scout on the mini-map if we head over to him, this whole cliff section over here is actually fully closed in. So actually I decided to try and get back to my base, and really what I should have done is go down the other side round here on the, let's say, the northeastern edge. But because I hadn't scouted the other side and I was getting close to that 430 mark, I decided to go and check how many he's got on gold, and just to see whether we were expecting that cataphract gulp build. Obviously I've got quite a few sheep, I got 12, which is pretty decent, and so I wanted to basically scout out the other half. I was ignoring this corner because for the time being that's not really going to affect my game too much. But obviously going for the 2TC, so I've got my 5 on stone. There we go, switch over to villagers for you. So that was working pretty well. And I put my House of Wisdom here, so I always build it with one of my my berry vills. And if at all possible, I like to try and place it where I can either connect it to the stone or to the gold. So if you see, it does connect that up. So I probably didn't need it to that far out, but I just thought it would be a little bit better over there. And a little bit further back as well, so that's kind of a bit more protected. Obviously, at this stage, everything's open because they can just run around the side, but you know what I mean. So actually, oh, okay, I didn't do what I thought I did. So actually I scouted around the back. So yeah, I was checking the winery position because I knew the winery was there. I'd seen that he's aged up, so I wanted to see how many villagers he had on there and stuff like that. And then also to scout out his production, because obviously depending on what production you see going up first, you can get a good idea of what they're planning on doing. So basically my TC's about to come up. I've almost got enough resources for it, and I chuck it on the gold. So if you have a look around my base here, you'll see that I don't actually have any other information about resources. So in hindsight, I maybe wouldn't have actually placed it here, but I thought if I can secure the gold, if I need to rush castle or I need to get those upgrades, it's relatively defendable. It's in the back behind the wood line, and I can wall it up. So actually I think I looked at a wall here, but again, we'll see a little bit later on what I would do differently, because actually, so I did actually have that vision. So you see here, this cliff is actually fully closed. So there's this wood line. Now, if I was paying attention, and obviously I wasn't because I'm telling you about it, I would have put a little short wall here as well as the wall at the back, just to delay them. So the problem is, without blocking this, you can circle around, and that's something that I sometimes forget when I'm walling. Is a lot of the time the wall isn't just about stopping them getting to a point, it's about them not being able to circulate around your base. So if you think like this wood line is great for protecting me, but if I don't block it, they can just literally run around the back, and then they can go all the way around the back of my base, and so everything's exposed. But anyway, if we have a look at his base, I did see a barracks, so I went for my archery range I'm about to, but most of the time, to be perfectly honest, an archery range is the right call when you're defending, because archers are really good at defending. So they have the DPS, so unless they're going to go heavy into like knights, which is slightly different, then you kind of want more. But if you see here, actually, oh yeah, that was me getting their little scout. So see you later, mate. That's a nice little sheep for me. So you can see here that I've actually got a little back berries over here. I've got a back gold. So I could have, if I was being a little bit more greedy, I could have stuck it here, but then it would force me to wall in a little bit more aggressively. So I tried to put them closer together. I probably could have even stuck it here, but anyway, if we take a little look, so it's almost 7 minutes and I'm just about to get my 10th building. So I usually try and aim to get my Golden Age by around 7 minutes. You can rush it up, so I could have rushed it with houses, but I assumed because it was Byzantines that they were going to be coming and doing a lot of aggression, so I didn't want to just keep spending loads of resources on that wood. I know it's only 35, but I need the wood for the archers, and I wanted to drop double archery range. That position, I'm not very happy with it now looking back on it. I definitely should have put it here at the back, definitely keeping those safe. So I was trying to keep my TC safe, and I didn't really think about my production, because obviously without production there's no units, so that's obviously something to think about. So here we go, we can see these villagers. Now this is where I got a bit confused. You'll see that I've put a camel in queue. So I saw these villagers going to these berries and I thought, brilliant, I'm going to be able to harass that. I completely forgot that I'd seen a barracks, so I knew they were going to be going for spears, Lipany, and obviously when you go with Lipany, you normally will either go longbows or javelins because it's the most logical choice. So actually going for the camel was stupid, and I think I put 2 in queue and then I get rid of the second one because I realised I'm dumb. But I kept my scouts at the front to try and see where they were going. But if you see, this back wall is not the best. It does block the TC, it does protect me, but the longbows obviously can range over the top, and they can now circle around and get wherever they want. So here we go. This is where I realise that I'm a dum-dum, and I think I probably... Do I cancel the second camel or I go for it? I'm not quite sure, but I pull all the villagers off berries, and this is where he doesn't notice. So I'm obviously doing this from my perspective so you can see what I'm doing. I don't want to show you the whole map view. We'll keep the caster mode at the top, but yeah, I don't really want to use God vision because this is kind of looking at my decisions. So I sent a couple of villagers to wall this in. I got the market just because I think it's always good to have the market there if you need it. I also wanted to secure that relic because I think putting it back here, it's just basically giving them a relic if they end up rushing castle. So I saw there was a ram going up here, so I knew that they're going to be trying to do a bit of a ram push. Now these rams are actually really difficult to deal with. It's funny because this matchup was actually the hardest one I had when I played Byzantines, and then actually now playing Abbasid, Byzantines is the hardest one to play against. But if you see all of this juicy fire that's burning around, it's really hard to get the villagers in the right position without burning them, especially with the longbows on the back because they have so much range. So this game really showed me that actually I've got to figure out a way of getting a bit better at getting down these rams. Now that did take out my Golden Age because not only did it take out the house, it also disconnected the mill, and the TC is now getting pushed. So this is where I'm trying to go around the fire, but obviously the longbows then get me. But one thing that I was really happy with that I thought of very quickly in the moment was moving my sheep to the back. So longbows can actually outrange a TC, and in this game I was like, well, if all of my sheep are at the front, then what am I going to do? Because then they can just shoot them from the front of my base. So I thought if I move my sheep to the back, they can't actually get round there. Now, this is where I'm taking lots of little fights, and defending against this, the camels, I'm not controlling those, they just got aggroed. So this is, if you see now, we can see that the ram's moving around, and I know that they're going to be shifting around into a new position. So this is where if this production was at the back, it would be a lot harder to hit. And you can see I've added in stables because they've got a lot of longbows. I really want to take those out. I see the Lipany down at the front, trying to get a couple of those, but again, I'm losing a few units, getting caught in the fire here. So this is really not a very good fight for me. Another archery range going down, so now I'm shifting back. I managed to grab all my villagers, which is always really fun. So they're all idle because I accidentally grabbed them with my army. And now my production's going down. So I'm trying to shift my villagers to a safe position away from this. And I'm putting a tower because then if they do decide to push round here, then I've got some more garrison slots. So I have actually defended this side, and so I decided to shift a load of villagers onto the berries at the back, as well as putting a load of extra production over here that's safe, because it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to get all the way back here while I'm defending. So this production, I basically just accepted it was going down because I couldn't defend it, and then moved it somewhere else. So this is me trying to mass up as much as I possibly can here, but we can see from the numbers at the top that he's getting an absolute ton of spears, and so this is really difficult to deal with because there's another 5 longbows in queue, so that takes us up to 13. I'm trying to put a tower here so that I can get some more vision and stop this, but obviously now 3 rams, that takes that out very, very quickly. I don't think I even got the cancel on that, so I did lose those resources. So I wanted to try and rush in with my horses and try and take out some of these rams, but this is where these longbows really do make a big difference. The villagers were right there, so I wanted to try and torch those if at all possible, and then trying to get on top of the longbows, but those spears there are everywhere, so you can see very quickly getting a lot of damage there. Trying to get a few little pick-offs, but I just don't have the numbers, and this is where I think, yeah, I jump in the DC just to try and do a bit of extra damage. But these villagers, I think this is where I make the call and I shift them over to the other side over here. So this TC now is actually really exposed because his whole army is basically sitting on these berries, and as I mentioned, with that extra knowledge, maybe I would have walled here and actually stuck the TC on the berries, and that would have also secured some more food, and it would have been a little bit maybe easier to defend or something like that. So he's trying to get down my golden age, so I don't think I've actually managed to get it back, which is really annoying because it disconnected my TC. Oh, I didn't realize that. How annoying. So that's something that I've only just realized watching this back, and definitely need to be more aware of making sure that my TC and all these other buildings, so all of these buildings are not connected now, and one building here would give me the golden age, so that's actually 15% less income. That's actually really massive. So I'm going to try and get the rams, but he's really good at pulling those rams back and then getting a few hits. So that's only 1 or 2 horses, but I'm struggling to keep up, like 40 against 20 here. But you can also see he's going up, he's getting close to the castle age, which I didn't realize because he's got so many units, but he's already got way too much gold. So luckily for me, his macro's a little bit out of order, and he does dive in there. The horses are getting right on the spears, which isn't ideal, and I'm trying to get as many archers as I possibly can, but there's just too many of these spears, and the TC is literally just getting burnt to the ground like a crisp. So yeah, I'm in real trouble now. I can see my military is really dying, and I do have a lot of villagers. So this is something that I was basically hoping for. Even if the TC went down, I knew it would give me a bit of a villager advantage. So I've also got lots of wood. I'm now looking at this is really scary, all of my villagers being at the front. So I think in a minute I do actually shift them to the back over here, because I definitely don't want the longbows just standing out here and just picking them all off, which is not ideal. So he basically stays on this side, which I think maybe is a little bit of an odd choice because he wants to get all this production. So he doesn't realize I don't actually have my golden age yet because I just need to drop a house here like an absolute numpty. But he's trying to take out all of the houses and my production, which isn't a bad choice because I am getting my melee defense and I'm trying to get my military upgrades. I've also got my eco techs because in a sort of prolonged fight, that's definitely going to help. And eventually I should be getting it. Yeah, there we go. I'm just about to get it because I basically have to rebuild all my production over here, and I decided to just basically go full archery ranges just because I just need an absolute ton. Those stables, you know, they might not survive, but at the moment the main problem is these spears. Once I can take out the spears, then the longbows don't actually face that much of a problem. But 4 of these rams, these Karasaifan, they're really expensive, but actually once the good thing to remember if you're against the Byzantines is, or if you are Byzantines, the fire damage they do stacks only to a certain limit. I think it's 3, possibly 4. So these extra rams, if they all attack the same building, the actual damage doesn't increase at all. So you want to really spread them out. And also they do attack in a line. So for example, if they attack from here and attack my TC, it will actually damage both buildings. So yeah, I decided to try and dive there and get some of those. My archers getting caught on top of those. I'm really struggling at this point to micro my units, get them in the right control groups. This is something I'm having a real tough time with. I literally have nothing to defend my TC with. I literally chuck all the villagers inside and try and keep it repaired, and I'm really trying to get down these rams while I'm taking out the spears, but the longbows, they're just absolutely annihilating my archers at this stage. I do manage to get some horsemen round the back and try and do a little bit of damage, and the archers are then being able to focus on some of those longbows as well. More of these coming out because I do have quite a lot of production, and this is where I'm starting to feel a little bit better about the amount of units I've got. Obviously, he probably could have gone to the Castle Age and then I'd have literally been in real trouble because there's not a lot I could have done against cataphracts diving into my base at this stage with the units I had. But his spear mass is now down, which does mean that my horses are going to be able to get on top. And even if he gets my villagers, I know I've still got a good villager lead. So this is where I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable. Very messy defense, but his rams aren't going to be able to get on top of my TC as easily, and so I just need to do this. But he's doing a really good job of putting them in the right position. So look at these villagers. Oh, these poor guys. And now I didn't realize until, because I was trying to manage that, and this is where I shift them out of the way. But all of his units have gone down, which is really good for me. And he's also, didn't realize, looking at the macro, he's really heavy on wood. So this is something that my secret coach has told me quite a lot, is that you have to really try and manage your wood as much as you can. So I've got quite a lot, but I'm actually planning on trying to add some farms to get some safe food, and also just producing a lot of archers because I don't have access to a lot of other resources at this stage. So now I decided to shift a load of these guys over here because I saw these berries, and so I basically finally put this little wall here, repair the wall that was already built, and then basically wall it in. So that gives me an extra food source. Because I've used up all those berries, I can't really risk going to the front here, but I just thought, why not? I'll put a tower, I'll try and go to the deer. If I lose a couple of villagers there, then it's kind of okay. So yeah, this is a bit risky. I don't really have the resources, but I send a horseman to try and harass, and then I see that he's still trying to mass up more units, but he's not quite pushing me. So this is where I know I've got to make a decision. I've got quite a bit of production. If we take a look, 5 ranges and 1 stables, which is pretty good. And I've started to get some farms. So I decided to add in another TC, add a TC back in, because I want to try and keep that advantage, because obviously with Byzantines, they get the Cisterns. I've got Golden Age, which can compete with, I think it's like the level 2 or the level 3 Cistern, which is pretty decent, but I really don't want him to be able to go and set up his groves, because his oil income is something that's really extra. So at this stage I decide to keep making more units, keep making more production. I don't want to get caught out. Still don't realize I'm not connected, but that house there that I placed randomly will actually connect it. And then I built a little short wall here. I'm hoping that that's fully sealed, but I did this basically to mean that the TC went around. So this TC is somehow still standing, looking a little bit worse for wear, but I basically don't want to get caught out by a ton of longbows this time. So I've got my horsemen, and I pull everything back, pull all of these guys back, and then I'm trying to use these as a bit of a raiding force, because if he is anything like me, trying to attack and defend at the same time is pretty tricky. But I've managed to get out on here, and I've also got my survival techniques, so that's pretty good. This is where one of my horses on my scout get caught at the front, and I know he's coming, so these guys are already way too far away to get involved in the fight. So I send them over here trying to check the berries, because obviously Byzantines wants berries just like us. And this is where, because of this tower, actually, I get quite a lot of extra vision, which is nice. There's no way I can get this deer pack, so I just basically sacrifice that. But he doesn't know I'm here. Obviously, otherwise he would just dive this and just get loads of villagers. But I know that he's building more rams, which is good for me. So you can see I'm really heavy on food now because I shifted tons of guys over here. I'm on the deer. And so this is where I have to... I also dropped the TC as well. So now I've got another TC, which also he doesn't know yet, which is good. And this is where I pull my archers forward to try and do a bit of damage. Again, probably a bit aggressive. I probably should have waited, but I wanted to try and get a little bit of damage there. I think probably, again, this is where I should just be massing up in the background, but yeah, so I basically shift an absolute ton over here and try and get both TCs printing just to get this villager number up again, because I'm really concerned that he's going to be able to remass much more quickly than I am, especially because Lipany are really food heavy and longbows are basically free, and then his archers actually just cost wood, so this is pretty good. But we can see here that I've managed to get on the back, only got one villager down so far, 2 going in, but this is idling up all of these groves, and this is where I noticed the huge investment in groves that he's done, which is actually a really good sign for me because his groves are full price. They do have really good income, but that does mean, like, for example, he should be out on the berries. He's got control, so he should be here. He should also be over here and basically trying to nick all of these berries, because what can I do? And this bit is fully sealed up, so if he decided to, he could literally just chuck a little wall here. He'd have 2 berry packs and a stone, which would be really, really good for him. So I can see he's building tons and tons of rams. And I go for a bit of a Hail Mary military wing. So whether this is the right call, my macro here is really not so good at this stage. So I'm trying to circle around. Let's watch this fight in cinematic mode. So I'm trying to circle my horses around to get on top of the archers while my archers are focusing on the spears. The TC is getting burnt down, but I can't really focus too much on that at this stage because I need to make sure that I don't let these units get on top of me. So at the moment, that TC is the sacrificial lamb to my military endeavors at this stage. So you can also see I've got a couple of horses here trying to see this, and I'm really confused because I would expect him to be out on these berries, but he isn't. So he's trying to dive under now. The TC is doing a bit of damage. The archer's getting caught, and archers against archers for me is not too bad. I'm not too worried about this. And basically my plan is just to hold until if I can get to Castle Age, because if this goes on any longer, I think it's just going to get more and more against me, more and more out of my favour. And it's kind of like the English. If you stay in feudal forever, they can just do a quick Castle Age switch, and then you've got armoured units in your base, which is a real problem. So at this stage, I'm really struggling to keep these up. 15 against 44 is not great for me. There's reinforcements popping in over here, a couple of spears. He's seen the tower. We can see the horsemen are trying to get round the back. The archers at the front are getting taken out very, very quickly. I'm running away with all my villagers as fast as I can. I do have 87 versus 53, so this is pretty good for me. But the Castle Age comes in, and my camel riders go in just on top of the archers, which is really nice. So I do take them away. And this is where, while I've been doing this, I have been setting up barracks in the back to get the Ghulams out, because the Ghulams will turn the tide on this really, really well for me, because even with this mass, once I get those armoured units out, like the Lancers and the Ghulams, that will do a lot of damage. So I do also have crossbows. Not sure why I'm making those, but just ignore that. There's lots of other things to deal with, like my burning landmark TC probably is more important. But Ghulams now starting to come in, and this is where these 46 units, even though they are there, these Ghulams can run under the thing and get those rams down. They should be focusing on the units, but obviously the developers made the decision, the really amazing decision, that melee units will target rams rather than, or siege rather than anything else. So obviously fighting under the fire as well, because you know that's how you do things. But this is where these Ghulams are so tanky. They're taking all of this. My Lancer as well, also trying to take out the rams. Again, don't want him fighting the rams. I want him fighting these archers. But so this is where if I were Boogaloo and I know I've got to castle, I've got all this gold, drop a market, buy castle. Castle Age, that's personally, but he's really going to try and take out my landmark at this stage. The Lancer is doing a lot of damage, the more Ghulams are starting to flood in, and I'm dropping even more production over on this side as well. So I'm also being super greedy. I realized that he wasn't on the map, so I basically decided that I would. So I went and stole his berries over here. I'm keeping an eye on the food on this side, and I shifted away from the deer because I've already taken those. I've already cleared off these berries, and I'm on the front gold up here. So basically, my only plan at this stage is just to survive. So I've got Ghulams trying to take out these rams, because once they're down, that's going to make my life a lot easier. And then now the Ghulam numbers are starting to build, and his units are really going to get absolutely hammered by these guys. The double hit works wonders against Lipany, even with that bonus health. So if I switch the view round so the fire's not in the way, we can see actually now that the archers and longbows are not doing as much as they did. So going military wing and trying to get those guys out was really a good play, I think, and something that I think I definitely need to remember when I'm getting pushed like this is not to stay in the Feudal Age too long. So if let's shift it back to the proper position. We can see now, there we go. So I am going for Lancers even though he's got spears, just because they're so tanky, and Lipany are good, but against castle Lancers with the military upgrades, I think they're pretty decent. So we can see from our God Vision that he is going for his age up, which I expected, because he wants to do that. Luckily, because I added in my other TC, I'm still making villagers even though this one is down. At the moment, my priority is literally just don't die. So you can see here that my macro is all over the place. I'm just literally trying to produce as much as I can. I've got a ton of food because I set up all of these farms, so I don't have my upgrades yet because I'm trying to just spend it on units, and I want to just basically send these guys immediately over to the base. So I managed to sent the horseman over there as well. I've got a Lancer trying to hit his age up, trying to do a bit of damage over here. Now equal number of villagers taken out, and my Ghulams are going to be going right into that wood line. I found all of these, and basically my plan is just hit them. So I'm not too worried about basically trying to do optimum damage. I send a Lancer, trying to send a Lancer into the eco to get those, but I just basically want to hit these units as hard as I possibly can while the others flood across the map. So I also decide to wall in, so you can see here that I'm walling all the way across this half of the map to secure that. And I think this is where I start to think about relics, because at this stage I haven't been able to even think about that, because, you know, I've been dying. He is starting to get crossbows, but really the Ghulams at this stage, especially if I've got boot camp, which if we double check back, I do have boot camp, perfect, so they do have that extra health, and so I send a little contingent into the grove. So I love doing this with Ghulams, is sending little pockets of them to different places. So you can see here I've got another couple of them running around the side here trying to do some damage and finding villagers, because until he gets a crossbow mass he's not going to be able to do a lot, and I've got a lot of these guys pumping out now. So we can see from the bottom I've started to pick up relics. I've also basically secured the one on this side. The one in the center I've kind of got map control, just you know, from running around, and all of these guys now slowly getting taken down. 98 villagers against 38. I think still haven't built my TC back yet, so actually I'm so concerned with that I think I completely forgot that my TC was burning, but luckily the other one's still going. No idle time on that, which is nice. So you can see here, this is where these Ghulams, they are going to go down, but because I'm idling a third of his economy, that's massive value because I'm still doing that. Also, while that fight was going on, he moved out to this front gold, which I caught. He also moved over here towards the other resources. So this is where I was able to catch quite a few villagers on the gold and keep him off that, because obviously no gold means no gold units. So I didn't realize obviously that he has such a huge amount of gold and wood. So at the moment, I think I'm doing a pretty good job balancing this up. Oh yeah, and I went Castle Age, I went Imperial, because I basically didn't have enough production, and I was floating so many resources that I just decided to go the Castle Age, the Imperial Age, just to get some upgrades, because otherwise it's just going to sit there and it's not doing anything. So rather than having like 6k in the bank, I thought, why not get a cheeky Imperial Age? I've got quite a lot of units, and I'm just going to secure up the base, keep raiding with a couple over here, getting a few villagers down here and there, keeping him busy in his base while I do this. So this is about to click up, and I remember from the messages, if I remember I'll put it up on screen, but he was a little bit surprised that I managed to do that. So I'm trying to grab all of the relics. I'm struggling in this game. I really struggle to try and do everything all at the same time, but there's the Imperial Age coming through. I've got quite a lot of resources now, not floating too much wood, which is good, but I don't have all my upgrades. But obviously, as I got the culture wing, I decided I'd just wait until I get preservation of knowledge. So I haven't actually put preservation of knowledge in queue, but I'm doing that. You can see that I'm putting my upgrades in. And no preservation of knowledge, obviously, but at this stage these Lipany are not going to be able to stop these Ghulams, and even with the crossbow mass, which is pretty decent, I think I'm going to be able to flood this. I also went mass archers because I knew he'd go crossbows, and Abbasid archers are absolutely insane, especially when composite bows comes in. Usually you'd expect to get composite bows before you get Imperial, but you know, what are you going to do? So he does the town bell, he basically tells all his villagers to run away, and the Ghulams are just absolutely shredding these guys in the groves. So we can't quite see them because the olives are covering them, but that's doing pretty well. Archers now just sitting firing at the TC, obviously, because, you know, that's what they're supposed to do, right? But yeah, so a couple of relics in the bag. This is actually really slow. I thought I had more of these. That's not really ideal, but more of these guys running around the back. All my veteran upgrades coming in. I got tithe barns because I assumed I had all the relics, which I don't. He also doesn't have any relics, so this is where I send some units around here to scout, because I hadn't even scouted this side, and I see another relic on this side, so I'm basically trying to do that. I don't know why I've got my prelate there, but that's where he calls it. So very messy, lots of mistakes, but I think I managed to defend those big pushes really well, and the Ghulam flood saved the day. So I hope you enjoyed this game, and if you want to see more casty games like this, let me know in the comments.